This happened in 2019. I was in my second year at college. At the time, I lived with two other girls in a town home, but they were back at their parents' house for the holidays. I work in healthcare and would be working Christmas that year. A bit of backstory. There used to be 4 of us living there, but one of our roommates had to move out due to issues with her boyfriend. He suffered from a condition called jackass. He was supposed to come every so often, but basically ended up living there. We told her that she had to kick him out after an incident where he got physical with her and verbally abusive with the rest of us. She wouldn't listen, and we told her that she would have to talk to the landlord. Long story short, she ended up moving out and left on bad terms with us. On another side note, I've also been in an abusive relationship, so I understand how things might have been for her. I tried my best for 2 years at that point to help her open her eyes and get her away from him, but you know how it goes. The entire situation was affecting everyone that lived there, and we didn't feel safe with him around, so she had to move out. It was Christmas Eve, and I had to work the next day, so I was getting ready for bed. I locked the doors, turned off all the lights, and went downstairs to the basement where my bedroom was. I was scrolling on my phone for about an hour. It was Christmas Day at this point. That's when I heard what sounded like chairs in the kitchen being moved. The kitchen is right above my bedroom. I thought maybe I was hearing the neighbors next door, as we share the same walls, and sometimes they can be loud. But I remember one of them texting me and asking me to bring in a package they were expecting, since they were gone. The noise was brief, so I just brushed it off. The next thing I knew, my bedroom door is being creaked open. In this moment, I get a flashback and remembered my second grade teacher telling us about the time someone had broken into her house, and she acted as if she was sleeping, so if they were just there to rob her, they wouldn't feel the need to hurt her. But my phone screen was lighting up my scared, jaw-dropped face, so I was unable to put on that facade. My bed faces directly to the door, so we're just looking right at each other. I was shitting myself, while the intruder had 1 foot in my bedroom, with the door cracked open. It felt like an eternity, but in reality it was probably only about 10 seconds. We were just staring at each other. He slowly closes my door. I just sit there in complete and utter shock. I could not make out what he looked like, as my eyes were still adjusting to the dark. All I could see was a backward baseball cap. I knew that I had to call the police, but my anxious ass knew that if I called, it would alert my parents. It was part of our phone plan. Me being dumb as hell, didn't want to worry them. I was also scared that he might still be in the house, and I didn't know what he would do if he heard me call. So I texted my boyfriend. Some random guy just broke into my house and came into my room. He immediately snapped me out of it and texted back, "Call the fucking police." The dispatcher asked me if I felt comfortable to go unlock the front door for them, so they wouldn't have to break it down. I told her no way. I don't care if the door is broken. I'm not going up there alone. A couple minutes later, I see flashlights shining through my window. I hear the police knocking at the door and announcing themselves. Once they were inside, they asked me where I was. I came out of my room, and they escorted me outside. They told me to wait on the back porch while they searched the house. It was like a scene straight out of a horror movie. They didn't find anyone, and said that it looked like nothing had been taken, and that there were no signs of forced entry. My boyfriend came and stayed with me for the rest of that night, but I still couldn't sleep. I kept getting up to check every inch of the house. I placed chairs under the door handles on the front door, back door, and even my bedroom. The next day I informed our landlord what happened, but she refused to come out and change the locks, even when winter break was over. For the rest of the time we stayed there, The locks were never changed. I believe it was our old roommate's boyfriend. I think he had an extra key made for him at some point because he was basically living there. But I don't understand why he didn't do anything to me, and he didn't take anything. If I'm wrong and it was somebody random, I don't know why they wouldn't have done what they intended. What were their intentions? Well, that could have been any number of things. So I live in a dorm on campus at my college. I was back a week early during winter break for Greek recruitment, basically interviewing with and visiting different sororities. And the only people on campus were a few other students doing the same and a skeleton crew. They didn't have the cleaning company, dining hall staff, or even our resident assistants around. There were 4 dorm towers, 12 floors each. I was the only one on my floor, and one of only a few in the entire tower. To get up to the dorm this week, you had to check in with the front desk to get your key activated. If you didn't have a key coded to a specific tower or room, you wouldn't even be able to access the elevator. Now, I was in my room on the second night of the week. I had settled back in and sitting on my futon, back against one of the armrests and facing the door. The rooms were your typical long rectangles, with a window on one end and a door on the other. My bed was lofted above me, and a blanket was hanging down. So you essentially couldn't see me from the doorway. I was lying there with my headphones in, scrolling through YouTube videos, when I heard the door opening. Not only was there a distinct sound of the key card going in, like a hotel room door, I also have Christmas ornaments hanging from the ceiling. I knew that the door had opened all the way, because it had hit an ornament, causing it to fall off its hook. I froze in fear. I knew my roommate wasn't back, and neither was my RA, and those are the only 2 people that would have access to my room. My first thought was that whoever this was would realize their mistake and quickly back out, kind of like opening an occupied bathroom stall. But as I sat there, barely breathing, I heard them taking 2 steps forward and even bumping into my suitcase, which was taking up most of the doorway. I adjusted slightly, moving to reach my phone, causing my futon to squeak. Instantly, the footsteps retreated and the door closed. I was stuck where I was for maybe an hour, until I could finally muster up the courage to get up. There on the ground was the broken ornament, and my suitcase sitting slightly ajar. I texted my roommate and my RA, practically begging them to tell me that they were back, but my roommate was still in London, and my RA confirmed my worst fears. But she also had no idea who would be able to get into my room. Even if the cleaning people or maintenance guys were back, they didn't have permission to go into the dorms, nor any way to get in. She assured me she would let the front desk know, and also suggested it was probably a spring admission student who had gotten the wrong key. I accepted that as an answer. They were confused, heard the futon, and realized they had got the wrong room. It would never happen again if that was it. But I still struggled to sleep that night. I even felt terrified to turn around and look at the door when I woke up the next morning. Night returned, unable to sleep and still very scared. I was once again up late browsing Reddit. This time I had my phone close to me and had taped a piece of string over the door, since I no longer had my ornament alarm. I needed to validate that I wasn't going crazy. Once again at 3 a.m., I heard heavy footsteps outside my door. The distinct use of a keycard, and my door opening up. I stayed perfectly still, and I realized I could see a reflection of a silhouette in the microwave's door, which sat against the window facing the doorway. They stood there and nearly filled up the entire doorway, the light from the hallway streaming around them into my dark room. I once again found myself frozen, convinced whoever this person was had ill intent. Last night wasn't a mistake. I hit play on a video I had queued up, and as soon as the ad started playing, the figure left and the door closed behind them, and the footsteps retreated. I told my RA and my roommate about this, as well as the front desk, the next morning. All of them confirmed that no one else had a registered key for my floor in my tower, whether it was another student or employees. I didn't sleep for the rest of that week and kept my suitcase and chair in front of the door, but it never happened again. But even now, months later, that 9x20 room is terrifying to me whenever I'm there alone at night, since whoever comes through that door is only a few steps away from my bed and blocks the only way out. This happened 20 years ago. I was driving back home with my girlfriend at the time. It was Christmas Eve, and my mother's family used to hold a large celebration at my aunt's house in Estacada. This was my girlfriend's first time meeting with my extended family, but she got on quite well with them. We spent the majority of the afternoon and evening talking, playing poker, opening presents, and drinking an assortment of adult beverages. My girlfriend had been quite inebriated by the time we had to leave, therefore, I would be driving us home. It was around 11 p.m. or so, and I was driving my girlfriend's car along Highway 211. Now, this stretch of road is surrounded by farms and dense patches of forest. There are parts of it that are completely unlit, but nothing to fear. I grew up in this area, so I knew this road like the back of my hand. Both of us were just driving and talking away. There's a portion of the highway that descends down an enormous hill before crossing Deep Creek. Surrounding both sides of the road is a thick forest. The only thing that we could see was the area directly in front of our headlights. I drove down the hill, crossed the bridge, then back uphill, through more forest. It was when the highway begins to flatten out again that it happened. Something sprints across the road so quickly, I nearly hit whatever it was. I slam on the brakes. I turned to my girlfriend. "Hey, did you just see that?" She confirmed that she had, but couldn't make out what it was. Maybe it was a coyote. They're a fairly common sight around this area, but something felt off about this entire situation. Whatever it was ran out in front of the car, then disappeared into the woods. Coyotes usually don't dart out in front of cars like that. So, for some reason, I decided to check it out. I turned the car around and switch on the high beams to illuminate the forest. I then stepped out of the car and began walking towards the woods. I don't see anything, but as I drew closer to the tree line, it feels like perhaps I had made a grave mistake. My heart was pounding, and the hairs on the back of my neck were now standing at full attention. I don't see anything unusual in the trees. Then suddenly, the car horn blasts. I hurried back to the car and asked my girlfriend what was going on. She didn't say anything. Instead, she pointed to a spot about 50 feet from where I was standing. I look over in that direction, and that's when I saw it. Without a doubt, this was the thing that ran in front of our car. It appeared to be a man, completely naked. His skin was covered in mud, and in one of his hands, he was holding a hatchet. He looked back at us, and then he smiled, then waved, just before turning around and walking back into the forest. Needless to say, we got the hell out of there. Once we were safely on the road again, my girlfriend explained what had just happened. While I was trying to look for the man in the direction that he initially vanished in, he circled around and came out from another spot in the forest beyond the car's headlights. My girlfriend had seen something out of the corner of her eye, and that's when she spotted him. Before she honked the horn, he was walking toward me, his hatchet raised as if making to strike me. We called the authorities once we safely got back home, but they never found anybody. The officer we spoke to explained his theory. The man was looking to ambush unsuspecting travelers. We all agreed that my girlfriend's quick thinking saved my life that night, as it let my potential murderer know that I wasn't alone out there. I moved back into that area recently, so now I drive on that highway often. There hasn't been any naked hatchet man sightings yet, but I can tell you that I'm definitely extra vigilant now, especially whenever I'm near Deep Creek.
There's always a reason to be afraid.